Oh, looks
I
it's a nice
wish.
one,
Well, I
that.
don't get
So,
any free gear now.
not
I have to
now.
pay for it. Not
Be
now.
careful. Be careful what you wish for. Right, I'm just going to
Yeah.
check we're online live here. Let me see. Says, yep, and we're showing as being live now. So welcome to everybody who's logged on to watch this morning. So mate's no introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. Before I go to his introduction, I just wanted to let you know that Paul has kindly donated a signed book for our quiz today. So if you listen throughout, right at the end of the talking, we'll actually ask you a question, and the winning answer should be sent to Sons of Liberty SAFC@gmail.com. But we will again talk about that later. So to the introduction, Stewie. Here we go. Stewart would start his career as an apprentice with Blackpool, turning professional in October of 1981 under then manager Alan Brown. Often switched between midfield and up front, Paul would find his true calling under new manager Sam Ellis, who moved him permanently into a centre forward role. Stewart would finish as top scorer in 2 of the 6 seasons with the Seasiders and would help them to promotion in the 84-85 season. After scoring 56 goals in 201 games for Blackpool, he would leave them for a then club record fee of £200,000 to join Manchester City. Unfortunately for City, they would be relegated in his first season, but Stewart blossomed with 24 goals in 40 matches. Terry Venables would lure Stewart away from Main Road, signing him at Tottenham in June of '88 for £1.7 million. At that time, it was one of the highest fees paid by an English club and the highest for a second-tier player. Stewart notched 12 times in his first season with White Hart Lane and eventually reverted back to a midfield role. He played alongside the likes of Naeem and Paul Gascoigne and behind the strike force of Gary Lineker and Paul Walsh. Stewart would excel in this role, putting in many influential performances for the London-based team. Scoring the first goal in the '91 FA Cup final win against Nottingham Forest, he received the Man of the Match award. During his time with Spurs, he gained England recognition, having already represented his country at under 21 and England B levels. Stewart received call-ups for England's men's national team, making his debut for the Three Lions against Germany in September of '91. After 131 appearances and 28 goals for Spurs, Stewart would join Liverpool to start the '93-'94 season. He scored twice at Anfield in the European Cup Winners' Cup first leg victory over, I've got to get this right now, Apollon Limassol. Unfortunately, injuries and a bad run of form saw him play second fiddle to Ian Rush. He'd managed one further league goal for the Merseyside Giants before heading out on a few loans to the likes of Palace, Wolverhampton Wanderers, Burnley and Sunderland. The latter he'd join on a permanent basis. At Sunderland, Paul would help the lads to promotion in '95-'96, but couldn't help them slip out of the first tier during his one and only full season with the club. In '96-'97, he'd feature alongside legends Kevin Ball, Darren Williams, Chrissy Waddle, Martin Smith, Mickey Gray, Lee Howie and Bracewell, a team that would say farewell to Roker Park. Stewart would finish joint top scorer with Craig Russell that year and be one of 3 players to score in the last ever game at Roker Park. He would leave the following season for Stoke before joining non-league Worthington, where he'd scored 15 goals in 55 games for the Reds over 2 years, helping them win promotion to the Northern Premier League First Division. Stewart remains one of the very few players to have distinction of playing in the North London Derby, a Manchester Derby, a Merseyside Derby, and a North East Derby. In 2016, Stewart revealed that he'd been the subject of physical and sexual abuse on a daily basis by his junior team coach, later releasing his book Damaged, which has been described as one of the most powerful and emotionally charged football life stories you'd read. Paul would join former teammate David White at SAVE, who aimed to effect positive change in safeguarding and victim engagement through football, a truly wonderful and necessary cause. Stewart's professional career spanned 18 years, and he scored over 140 goals in almost 600 senior appearances. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Stewart. There you go, mate.
Good morning, I should say. Should I? Or have we got
it's good morning over here. It's actually just noon in most of the place over here. I apologise. Okay. I need to put my teeth back in a few times there, Paul. I've stumbled on a few words. I had a good night's sleep as well last night, so that's weird. So how are you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm good, thank you very much. Yeah, very well, thanks.
Glad to hear that. So let's tell the viewers what are you up to these days?
Well, mainly I work with the EFL. I deliver workshops around safeguarding, so that's my main focus. I also do it in schools and colleges and universities, just raising awareness really and making sure that people are vigilant and that we don't have what happened in 2016 with a lot of people coming forward. We don't have that in 20 years time. So that's my main focus and what I do on a daily basis now, apart from since we've been locked down, because I would visit academies, at football clubs and talk to either coaches, the academy players, and staff or parents.
Hmm. Okay, so I just got some comments coming through already. I'm going to just call out a lad called Graham Pritchard, who was out in Arizona there. He
Yeah.
mentioned about how long the intro was. Graham, I'm just going to say this is Paul Stewart, man. I mean, he's played for a ton of clubs, and he's again 18 years in the game, so pack it in already. Anyway, so as I mentioned in the intro, you offered like you're starting football by Alan Brown at Blackpool, so you turned professional at the age of 17. So as a young player, where did you draw your inspiration from?
as a youngster, like everybody else, I used to watch football on TV. Grandstand, I think it was Match of the Day, which was still going then and still is today. Um, Coming off a Wythenshawe council estate, all we did was play football. That was all we were interested in doing. Supporting either United or City, and I'll be honest with you. Although I didn't mention it when I moved to Manchester City, I was a United fan as a youngster, and I watched players like Stevie Coppell, Big Joe Jordan, Martin
Mm-hmm.
Buchan, Gordon McQueen, and that sort of era was my idols really,
Mm-hmm.
and Joe Jordan being uh, a
But
particular idol of mine.
but he wasn't. I mean, it's funny you should say that. But I remember Joe Jordan as being like the hard man of the team, but you certainly didn't have that persona on the field. So was it
Yeah.
any players that you would try and emulate when you're on the field, or especially as a
Um,
youngster?
I don't think you go on there and you try to emulate anyone. You concentrate on and hope that the ability you've got is enough to take you through. And I particularly, I wasn't blessed with the most skill, but I'd like to think that I made up for it with the hard work. Certainly in the early days of my career,
Mm-hmm.
I trained really hard and I worked hard on the pitch, and even if it wasn't going so well, I'd try and give 110%.
It's always good to hear. So after 6 seasons in the lower leagues, you made your name as a reputable striker, obviously earning yourself a place in Blackpool's Hall of Fame. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Um, you then go on to join Manchester City in the first tier of English football. When the move came about, did you find the transition to a bigger club to be quite easy, or was it more difficult than you originally thought?
Well, do you know what? I was as you quite rightly said, at Blackpool for some 6 years. I think I had a good apprenticeship there, playing in the lower divisions.
Hmm.
It wasn't for the faint-hearted back in them days, um, and I was obviously apprehensive um, when I joined Manchester City. But I'd always wanted to better myself and try and get into that. It was then the first division,
Hmm.
and hopefully make a mark. So as much as you're apprehensive, you have to back your own ability and be confident that you can play alongside players of that ilk. And whilst I was apprehensive, I thought I had the ability to sort of play at that level.
Hmm. That's fine. So you've already answered my next question, which was going to be who did you support? But obviously, you went on. I saw the El Tel, as he was
Yeah,
known in the tabloids back then. He come knocking on the door and obviously convinced you to join Spurs, the big lights of London. I mean, to be fair, like I think I mentioned this to you the other day. As a
yeah.
football fan, it was definitely a brilliant move for you. And I always remember Paul Stewart as a Spurs player, even though above
Mm.
and you represented Sunderland. So have you got any interesting or funny stories you can share from your Tottenham days? Because you
Well,
play with some characters there for sure.
oh, you tell me about it. Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was a big step going to London. I mean, I had the choice of going to either Everton um, or Spurs or Glasgow Rangers, and the sensible thing I think would have been to have stayed in the northwest and probably moved to Everton.
Hmm.
But I went down to London to meet Terry, or El Tel as we call him, and he just sold the club. You know, he sold a dream to me. Um, I went in this, and bearing in mind I'd not been to London that much, only to play games and come back, you know, in a day. So I didn't really know so much about the bright lights, and I turn up in Kensington in this big plush hotel. Terry's sat in the bar with champagne on the table, and he just sold the club to me. So
Hmm.
I actually agreed after the meeting that I would join him. But the only thing was I was getting married the next Saturday, and I said, "Look, I'll definitely join." And in them days, you could shake hands on it, and I shook his
Hmm.
hand and I said, "But please keep it under wraps until I get married on Saturday, and then we'll release it to the press." But somehow it got out, and although I was married at a registrar, the TV and everybody media turned up because they'd heard that I was signing for Spurs. But you know, as a Northern, it was a massive step to move down there, and you know, I did struggle initially. I struggled because it was a different way of life, and
Hmm.
you either sink or swim, and I kept at it and managed to turn my career around at Spurs. But you know, I played, as you said, alongside some fabulous players, Chrissy Waddle,
Hmm.
who was on fire in the first season, and of course our friend and everyone's friend, Mr. Gascoigne.
Hmm.
We were we were initially thrown in a hotel together before because we had to look for somewhere to live, obviously. So they put you up in a hotel for 3 or 6 months until you find somewhere to live. And let me tell you, it was quite lively in the hotel, and we got up to some antics. Let me tell you.
So I know when you went to Spurs, obviously you reverted back into a midfield role. So I mean, how did that come about, and which did you prefer? Did you prefer playing up front, or do you prefer playing midfield?
Well, you know, as I alluded to a minute ago, I struggled at first. You know, they paid a lot of money for me, as you said in the intro,
Hmm.
1.7 million, and they expect goals. The fans
Hmm.
expect you to score goals. I'd scored goals at City and Blackpool, as you said. So there's a lot of pressure on, I think, to score goals. Um, and in my first season, I think you mentioned I scored 12 goals, which back then wasn't enough of a return on the investment.
Hmm.
So, and a lot of people seem to think that it was a touch of genius by Terry Venables about me going back into midfield, but it
Hmm.
couldn't be further from the truth. What happened? We were playing Luton Town at White Hart Lane, and we had two players sent off. I think Naeem and Pat Van Howe were sent off, and I was playing up front with Gary Lineker. And out the two of us, to be fair, there was only one that was going to drop back because Gary was an out goal scorer. So I dropped back into midfield, managed to score two goals. We won the game,
Hmm.
um, and all of a sudden I find myself in midfield. And the following game, again, I started up front, but we had I think Gaza was sent off, so I dropped back again, and
Hmm.
I got man of the match on a TV game, and from then on, really, I was a midfield player, and for me, it was a great gig because I was playing alongside at the time, I think the best player on the planet, which was Paul Gascoigne. I worked out
Hmm.
very quickly that if I win the ball and pass it to Paul, he'll do something magic. And then all of a sudden, people are looking at me saying he can play a bit, this Stewart in midfield. But
Hmm.
but really, I just sort of worked out very quickly that because I could always get the ball, I could always ruck and fight for the ball, and
Hmm.
and 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 and, and he ended up probably being more of a minder
Hmm.
for Gaza, so he could go and do his magic.
Well, that's excellent. So your performances at Spurs obviously caught the eye of the then England manager Graham Taylor. And then you make your debut, obviously, England against Germany at Wembley in September '91, obviously prior to the '92 Euro qualifiers. How did that compare to playing in and winning the FA Cup final? So again, I'm talking about your appearances at Wembley. So you're playing for
Yeah.
Spurs and then playing for England. You know what I mean? National side. How did that compare?
Well. Again, it's a boyhood dream, isn't it, that you have to play for your country and play at Wembley, and then get your debut against a German side that were dominating. I mean,
Mhm.
it really was stuff of football magazines, isn't it? Your Roy of the Rovers stuff, and
Yeah.
I was honoured. Um, my family were all there to watch it. My mum and dad.
Mhm.
So it was a really proud moment, and I know Graham Taylor, and people will say that his reign there wasn't the best, but for me, I still managed to put on the three lions
Mhm.
and achieve a goal that I'd always dreamt of.
Mhm. No, that's fantastic. So during Spurs, at your time at Spurs, you scored 28 league goals in 131 appearances before being snapped up by Liverpool. And obviously, as I mentioned before, things started really well with your goals in the European Cup Winners' Cup. But the first team football seemed to fall away just based on like injuries that you had. And like I said, you had a bit of a loss in form as well, and you did lose a little bit of favour with the management. So from what I'm read, these were not the easiest times like in your professional career. Can you just give us like a overall summary
Yeah,
of what happened for you at Liverpool?
yeah. I mean, the honest to God truth is, I'd started to go off the rails towards the
Mm-hmm.
end of my career at Spurs. I wasn't looking after myself. I was doing things off the pitch that I shouldn't have been doing. When I moved to Liverpool, I carried on in the same vein, and I
Mm-hmm.
was just in a self-destruct mode. So, I was drinking every day. I was taking drugs. So it wasn't so much my form. I mean, you cannot perform when you're drinking as heavy as I was and taking drugs. But it was a problem that was my own problem, and I didn't. I have come out publicly and said I didn't get on with Souness, and I don't think anybody
Okay.
did. I don't think anybody did, but it certainly wasn't Souness's fault or Liverpool Football Club's fault that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
succeed there. It was purely down to what I was doing off the pitch,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd gone too far then with my problems, So
Mm-hmm.
it remains one of the biggest regrets of my life, because I think had I kept my head straight and not gone off the rails, then I don't. I think I probably played 300 games for them,
Yeah.
whereas I think I played 24, and you know, as I say, it remains a massive, massive regret for me.
I think I mean I can understand why you think that way. I think obviously that time as well was the time of the I think they were dubbed the Spice Boys like Fowler and McManaman and all the young lads were coming
Jamie,
through at that
Jamie
time.
Red,
Yeah,
Jamie
Redknapp.
Redknapp, and
It was brilliant as well. And you think
mm,
about Rushy was there. I think Barnes was there as well.
yeah, there's some
So
great players there. I mean,
yeah,
I had the opportunity to play with some fabulous players. Jan Mulby was there, Ronnie Whelan was there, Stevie Nicol, the young lads coming through that you just mentioned,
yeah.
Robbie being the striker that he was.
Hmm.
So it was all really set up for me to do well, really. But like I say, I let myself down by uh, doing what I did off the field, which what an athlete playing at the top level cannot perform
Hmm.
when you're doing things like that.
Well, I appreciate your honesty there for sure as well. I had read also that Man City had tried to come in and rescue you, but nothing seemed to come of it. What happened there then?
Yeah, Reedy rung me up, and my boss at Blackpool, Sam Ellis, was his number two, and he wanted to buy me,
Hmm.
but the then chairman, Mr. Peter Swales, I'd fell out with him when I left Manchester City to go to Spurs. Um, he said that Peter could come and buy me. And then right at the last minute, he said, Stewart isn't coming back to Manchester City.
Hmm.
So Reedy just rung me up. He said, I don't know what's gone on, but the deal can't go through because of an issue you had with Peter Swales. So I said to him, literally, I called him a liar. He tried to insinuate that I wanted to leave Manchester City, but I never asked to leave City. City sold me because they were offered 1.7 million, but
Hmm.
Peter Swales put out that I'd asked to move and that I didn't want to play for the club. So I just called him a liar
Hmm.
to his face,
Hmm.
and that then sort of bit me back in the backside, because when Reedy wanted me to join them from Liverpool, he
Hmm.
scuppered the deal.
No.
But that's the truth behind that.
Well, the way I see it is, you know, I basically only one club's loss is another gain. I mean, you went out there, you had 3 loan spells with, I mean, I mentioned before, um, Palace and the likes. What you know, you came to Sunderland. It was during the 95-96 season. So, and then you debut in a 1-1 draw away to Port Vale. And then actually you came on for a talking guest that we had on here before, Brian Atkinson. So what was it like when you pulled on the Sunderland shirt for the first time?
Well, to be honest with you, first and foremost, joining them was revitalised my career. I was going nowhere. You know, I was in the reserves constantly at Liverpool. People had heard that I wasn't doing the right things off the field, so it looked like, you know, once my contract was up at Liverpool, that I wasn't going to get another club. But Reedy again called me up, asked me how I was physically and mentally, because he knew what I was getting up to.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'm not in the best place, but I'd like to think I could get myself back in the best place.
Mm-hmm.
So he took me on loan. I got myself fit again. You know, I managed to kick the habits that I had, and you know, it does remain one of my proudest sort of moments of my career, because
Mm-hmm.
from thinking that I was going nowhere at Liverpool and probably going to go out the game because nobody wanted me, I managed to get myself fit enough to help a team go up into the Premiership and then play in the Premiership again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that I set the world on fire at Sunderland. You know, you know, it was difficult in that Premier League. You know, we didn't have the money,
Mm-hmm.
so you know, we were bringing players like myself in that were,
Mm-hmm.
you know, were on loan or you know, coming to the end of their career. We had some great youngsters, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
so it just sort of worked for me. And you know, like I say, and that's the honest to God truth, it remains one of the proudest moments of my career, because I
Mm-hmm.
lifted myself off the floor, if you will, got myself
Mm-hmm.
really fit, and managed to go and play in the Premier League again.
That's awesome. So I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball here, but I am going to ask you, how did it compare playing for Sunderland? You know, bearing in mind that you'd played for City and you'd done really well there, playing for Spurs, done really well there. Obviously, we just talked about Liverpool, but obviously representing Liverpool, playing in Europe, and then coming to Sunderland. I mean, I'm going to say this because I'm obviously biased as hell, but to me, I mean, with the exception of, I'm going to say probably Liverpool, I would put Sunderland on a pedestal with Man City and Spurs with regards to club size. And certainly
Definitely.
we talk about fan base, but how did it feel to play for Sunderland after you played for these other clubs?
Well, you're exactly right, and you go to the northeast, and the passion is there for all to see. They love the club. The support is just immense, you know, home and away.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, you feel that you're as big a club as the two that you mentioned in Spurs and Man City.
Yeah.
And you know, I still believe that they are,
Mm-hmm.
despite where they've dropped down to. But you know, I think they'll be back, because they've got that fan base that is like, you know, it's like no other that
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced in terms of the passion and the love for the club.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So going back to your Sunderland days now, so obviously you pick up a.
I've lost you a little bit, Derek. Hello.
Right there, you get that's all right. Was that you
I'm
shouting in
back.
the background there?
I think it's my daughter messing about.
That's all right, man. So what I was saying, Paul, was basically like you joined Sunderland on loan initially, and you pick up an injury like shortly into, I think it was like for 4 or 5 games you played for Sunderland that
Yeah,
season.
I think I got injured at Ipswich
Yeah,
there away,
yeah,
and
that's right. Yeah.
again, I thought that my luck had run out again. But to be
Mm-hmm.
fair to Reedy, he said, "Look, go away. I'll come back in for you when you've got yourself fit."
Mm-hmm.
So I had something to aim for. So
Mm-hmm.
and true to his word, he came back for me.
Mm-hmm.
And well, as I say, the rest is sort of history.
Well, based on that alone, and again, the irony of it was that shortly after you returned to Liverpool, we actually got knocked out of the League Cup by Liverpool that year. And then obviously you'd return later in the season, but you didn't actually make your home debut until March of '96. It was right towards the back end of the
Mm.
season, and a 3-0 win over Derby County. Do you have any memories of like running out on the pitch, making your home debut at Roker Park?
I remember it, yeah, because I think Slaven Bilic was playing centre half for Derby. They were a decent side, they were challenging. I think then this was my home debut, and I wanted to make a point to the fans. I think I played up to about 70 minutes and came off, but I'd like to think I had a decent game. And then to be honest with you, I almost broke down and cried in the changing room because it was sort of a relief, and I got back, and I played a decent game, and it just everything sort of flooded in at one moment. So I managed to keep it together in the changing rooms, but it was relief, elation. It was everything all rolled up in one. And yeah, I remember it was a hot day. I should have scored a goal. But yeah, it was fantastic because the ground was full. I mean, there was nowhere like Roker Park, was there, when it's full and bursting at the seams in terms of intimidation, in terms of atmosphere. I don't think there was anywhere like it.
So, I mean, how many times we just showed before we started the talk, we actually showed the 0-0 draw from the 1990-91 season where you were playing for Spurs. Obviously, that was full to the rafters that day as well. So, what is it? So, not just about your time at Sunderland, but what was it like as an opposing player coming at and playing at Roker Park? Did you get the same feels?
Well, yeah, it was intimidating. I'll be honest. The crowd felt like the crowd were on top of you. So they were like the 12th man, the crowd. There's no doubt about that. You knew whatever Sunderland team you were going to play against, they were going to go after you. They were never. You were never going to go there and stroll about. And Spurs were sort of tagged as a team that of Southern softies that show up 1 minute and then don't the next. So I imagine that the Sunderland fans and the players, when we came to visit, thought they had a good chance of beating us because of the crowd and how they were always up for it, the players.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting that you should say that. It looked to me, so based on what you said there, I think there was a crunching tackle on Ruben Agboola within the first 2 seconds by one of your midfielders. I can't remember who it was. Like I thought he was going off, so I think that might have been part of what you were saying there, basically. So, going back to your performances for Sunderland, your first goal for Sunderland actually came in a 3-0 home win over Birmingham at Roker Park in April of '96. Right. How did it feel for you to score your first goal, and do you remember? Do you actually remember the goal itself?
I do, yes. But Craig Russell, who was playing up front was scoring goals left, right, and centre, and really wanted an experienced head to play alongside him because he knew that the kid could score goals. I think I gave that experience to help Craig develop even more. So I didn't feel so much under pressure about scoring goals. It was all about what I could do with the younger players, how I could help them develop, but also on the pitch be sort of the experience that was needed just to get them over the line. It was all about just getting them over the line to get in the Premiership. And I think I'd already done it at Palace. I went on loan there and took them up, or helped take them up. And so I'd been there, seen it and done it, if you will, at the top of the second division. So I think that's what really I think my role was, rather than an out-and-out goal scorer. But I was relieved to score at Birmingham because as a striker, you always want to score goals. You always want to score goals.
Can you talk us through your goal? Do you remember it?
It was a header, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Just trying to catch you out, mate.
Yeah, no. I didn't score that many, so I do remember him.
But I tell you, I've got a question coming in from Stephen Meerman in Atlanta. Who was harder, Razor Ruddock or Kevin Ball? Bally?
Yeah,
Jesus.
He was one of the hardest, I think, players I've ever come across. But
Yeah.
you know, there's a thing where you have players that come across as hard because they go over the top and they're not honest. Bally was honest hard, and that's what you know. That's why I put him above most players in terms of how hard he was. But he was an honest, hard man.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this, but Borley's our, I guess, honorary president, but we call him our commander in chief. So he's
Yeah.
he's supposed to be coming over here next year. But I
Oh,
will
good.
pass that on. I'll pass that on to him that he's harder than
Yeah.
Ruddock. You probably already
Yeah.
knew that. You know, he
Yeah. Of
doesn't really
course.
mention
Of
it,
course he
but
does.
that's
Of course he
excellent. So
does.
I've had another question coming through as well. What?
Okay.
Oh no, good lord! What's the best Reedy drinking story from Steve from Steve in Atlanta?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't socialise that much because I was trying to keep myself,
Yes.
you know, right for the club. And I was travelling. I was staying in a hotel and travelling from Blackpool to Sunderland for the games. So
Okay.
I didn't really go out on a session with them. In all honesty.
Okay.
And I think Reedy was doing right as well by not, like, you know what it's like when you're struggling on drink. That first one is too many. So I suppose
Yeah.
I can't really, unless that's the honest to God truth. I can't give you a story of my times drinking at Sunderland.
That's all. That's all right. And again, totally understood, especially based on the situation as well, mate. No, so I can take my hat off to you. You're better than I am for that. I'm going to get a little bit more personal now, if you don't mind.
That's
So
fine. No,
we
you
mentioned
fire away.
I mentioned at the start there. So obviously in 2016, you revealed that you'd been subject to physical and sexual abuse throughout your junior career. Later, you released a book entitled "Damaged," which was charted your football and life, including the aforementioned abuse. You then joined City legend Dave White at Safeguarding and Victim Engagement, which is association, which is also known as SAVE. Um, what was it like when you first revealed your history of abuse? You know, how did the football community react to that?
Well, I think first and foremost, I have to say I'd never had any intentions of coming forward.
Hmm.
I thought I'd take this story to my grave. Um, when I read an article about one ex player had suffered, I
Hmm.
just felt that I was duty bound to support him by coming forward. Now he hadn't played for the big clubs that I'd played for. I
Hmm.
felt that if I didn't come forward, his story would just be lost and go nowhere. I
Hmm.
knew that because I'd played for England, Liverpool, Man City, and Spurs,
Hmm.
and Sunderland, that the media would jump on the story and
Hmm.
it would at least give him some support out there. I
Hmm.
didn't really account for the tsunami of individuals that came forward after my after I declared it to the nation. And like I said, it was something that I did think about, but I had to before I actually came forward. I needed to tell my own family, my immediate family, because
Yeah.
I'd not even told them. So I sort of took the weekend, told my wife and kids, and told them what I was going to do.
Hmm.
Went to my parents, which was a very difficult journey that I had to make because obviously I was going to deliver them real bad news about somebody they'd invited into our home that had abused me over a 4 year period. So, do you know
Yeah.
what? No son or daughter would want to have to, and my parents are elderly, and no son or
Hmm.
daughter would want to be in that position, if you know what I mean. So,
Yeah.
but I just felt that it was important for me to come forward in support of this ex player, but also so my family could understand me a little bit better. You know, they didn't understand why I took the path that I took, taking drugs, going out and
Hmm.
staying out for days without coming home. Not
Hmm.
being able to tell them that I love them. I've never been able to tell my wife or my children, never cuddled them like a father should do. So for me, it was in some way explaining um, why dad was like or
Hmm.
dad or husband or son
Hmm.
was really like he was. So in
Yeah.
some way it was for them, because at the end of the day they didn't deserve some of the devastating actions that I heaped upon my own family and my loved ones and my friends.
Yeah. Well, I think though, I mean, if I can take a positive spin out of this, you obviously work with David White and stuff. With I mentioned before the Safeguarding and Victim Engagement Association. Can you tell the folks at home, like, can you tell a little bit about Save and what it's about?
Yeah,
And
Save, as I say, David came forward the day after I came forward, and I
Mhm.
played with him at Manchester City
Yeah.
when I joined, and I was at the Professional Footballers Association, the PFA, because Gordon Taylor had invited us down after our stories, and we just got talking, and we both had a vision that we wanted to look at the landscape, what safeguarding was like
Mhm.
out at grassroots
Mhm.
and at the professional clubs, and we sort of both had the same sort of vision, if you will. So from there, Save was born, and now I deliver safeguarding awareness courses for the EFL and for the Premiership clubs at their
Mhm.
academies, to the coaches, to the players, and to the parents,
Mhm.
because you know there is still a problem out there. I know
Yeah.
that things have got an awful lot better, but we're still a long way away from where we should be. So
Mhm.
that's what I do on a daily basis now.
Yeah, I mean, again, in the States here, we still hear about it all the time.
Yep.
And obviously, I say the rules are different over here than not. There's all sorts of other implications of, taking a minor across state
Yeah.
lines and all this. So I can't tell you how I feel about someone who's abusing someone. Well, I can, but I might have to shut this off. But
Mm.
it's just
Yeah, I
disappointing,
understand.
obviously, that happens. And then, that this, this obviously adds up to the penalties that they accrue over here for the time
Mm.
served. And, I mean, I coach over here, and I actually coach field hockey, but it's very difficult, and it's considered a female sport here, unlike at home, where it's obviously mixed. But it's very, very difficult to get into that environment as a male coach, and then you hear all these horror stories. It just doesn't
Mm.
help at all.
No,
And
no.
so on behalf of everybody, Paul, obviously I just want to send massive thanks to you, and to obviously David as well, for the stuff that you're doing, because I think even just
No.
creating awareness and
Yep.
letting families know, giving them opportunities or chances to see or to look for triggers, or
That's right.
where
Signs,
kids are coming.
signs,
Yeah,
signs, and symptoms are a big part of what I do. But it's also the power that a coach has over an
yeah,
individual. When we were children, David and I, we thought that our coach had the power to give and to take away our
hmm,
opportunity in football, and
yeah,
that's what they use as a leverage to abuse you, basically.
yeah,
And this is what we go out and we try and say the message. Listen, because I think I still would have made it. I still would have
hmm,
made it, because I was determined to make it, and I want kids to know that, because I thought, oh, you know what, he might make it difficult for me to move forward in my career, but that
hmm,
doesn't happen. So I tell the kids, don't if you've got a problem, you must come forward,
yeah,
because you don't want it get to a point where I'm more on the prevention. You know what I mean?
yeah,
The big question that I get asked all the time is, what could we have done, Paul, to
hmm,
help you sort of speak out when you were being abused? I said, well, to be honest with you, I'd rather somebody have educated me around grooming and what grooming looks like, because
hmm,
if I'd have known about the grooming side of it, it probably wouldn't have got to,
yeah,
you know, the abuse side of it. So we look at the prevention side, because
yeah,
it's too late. Once it's happening, it's too late, because the individual has groomed everyone around you. Is that you
hmm,
are then isolated? For me, he threatened to kill my parents and my brothers. When you're 10 years old, you believe that.
yeah,
So, what we try and do is educate them about all these signs and symptoms, and the grooming side of it, so that if they do have a problem, they can come forward and they can
hmm.
speak to individuals or safeguarding officers at the clubs.
Well, it actually happened to you. I just think it's a disgrace that people abuse their positions like that. I'll go back to empowerment of a coach. You know, the kind of things that I'm asked to do is actually the parents will come and talk to me to ask me to get the girls do their homework and stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, as a coach, you do have that leverage where you can go and say, hey, you know, you need to keep up your grades and all this kind of stuff to make sure you're part of the team. But it saddens me to think that people would abuse their position. Yeah. So anyway, enough about that. So, but
That's
again,
fine.
thank you,
That's
Paul. I
fine.
appreciate it. I say, do
I
what you
think
do doing.
I said to you, Derek, didn't I, when we spoke in the week, you can ask me anything and
Yeah.
I'll answer it honestly, because I think it's important that I do answer it honestly, and that people understand why,
Yeah.
after coming forward, why I do the work that I do.
No, again, we certainly appreciate that. One other thing I'm going to say to the people that are watching the video live, we are having a little bit of a problem with the chat. So if you want to ask questions, you can send them to my Facebook account. Look for me and Derek Aspinall. I've already mentioned it to some of the other lads as well. So I'm actually receiving some questions through via that route. So I'm going to go back and ask you the question that you've probably been asked a million times before. It's about the derbies that you played in. So Spurs, Arsenal, Man United, City, Liverpool, Everton, Sunderland, Newcastle. Which one, no pressure, which one do you believe to be the most fiercest rivalry?
Well, I'm gonna correct you here, but if you ever
Oh,
get the question asked again,
yeah,
because history says that I played in a Manchester derby and I never did.
you did. Okay, thank
So,
you.
but I did play in another derby, which was Wolves West Brom.
Okay.
So, but by far the most intimidating one, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
They are all unique in their own ways. You know, you have the London derby where Arsenal and Tottenham are really arch rivals. The problem we had, I think, in that one was that Arsenal were dominating under George Graham an awful lot, so we tended to come out second best. The Everton Liverpool one, you know, you've got fans, they go to the game together, you know, they mix and sit and stand next to each other, Liverpool and Everton fans, which
Yeah.
you know you won't get.
No.
And then you go to the northeast, and it's pure hatred, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Sunderland to Newcastle, and you feel that, and you know the derby days or derby games are great because
Mm-hmm.
the week leading up to it, there's a buzz about the place.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows what's at stake. We know it's bragging rights. We know that, you know, we want to be the ones that have won the game so that the fans can go into work and have the banter with everyone. But yeah, they are all unique in their own way. But certainly the fiercest and most hatred between fans is definitely the Northeast Derby.
I just wanted to mention there as well. I did get that information through. Simon Telfer, our Canadian friend, was actually asking that question as well. So thanks for the question, Simon.
Thanks, Simon.
So that year, right? So obviously we played the Mags twice that season. So we actually lost 2-1 at home, I think I remember, and then away we drew. It was the year
We
when
should have
there was
beaten
no.
them.
That's what I was just going to
Them
get on
away.
you about. We dominated the game. It was the
We
one
did.
where we had there was no fans allowed, right? So,
That's right.
what memories do you have of that game then?
Did Mickey score a great goal? Mickey Gray.
He did. We drew 1-1. Yeah, Mickey Gray scored. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I remember exactly what you just said there, Derek. We absolutely tore them apart. I thought without getting the goals to put them out of sight, and they sneaked an equaliser, didn't they? But
He did.
do you know what that was, and will long live in the memory, because you go to Newcastle and do you know they were, without being rude to Sunderland, but they were probably shining more than Sunderland were at the time. And to go there and not only give them a game on their own pitch, but tear them apart was great. Great to
Paul,
be involved in.
They finished second that year. That was the year that Kevin Keegan lost it with
That's what
Ferguson.
I mean. Was Ginola was there, wasn't he? Was
Yep,
Ginola
he was.
there?
Yeah.
And they had a decent side, but
Aspria, Ginola. Yeah, they had some cracking players there.
And we went there and we did more than match them. We outplayed them.
I know we did. It's just that was probably like the shining part of our season. So during the season with the club, you lined up alongside some quality players in my eyes. Some of the what we consider legends to the day. So we mentioned Gary Bennett, Lee Howie. We're not talking about his brother. Do you remember that chant or not? The Lee Howie chant. Let's not bring that up then.
No,
So Dickie Ord, Darius
Dickie Ord.
Kavitsky,
Yeah.
Stevie Agnew, Gordon Armstrong.
I've lost you, Derek. Can you
Hang in
hear
there.
me, guys?
I
It's
can
all
hear
right.
you. I can
Okay.
hear you.
No.
I see you back now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was
Yeah.
the best Sunderland player that you played alongside, and why?
I like Dickie Ord.
Yeah.
I know Andy Melville went on and played at a higher level
Hmm.
once Sunderland had been relegated. But I thought Dickie had everything as a centre half, and I was shocked that he didn't go on and really play at the highest level. So for me, he was one of the players that I thought was destined for better things than he
Hmm.
actually achieved.
Well, he went
Mickey,
to QPR and he got injured shortly into his tenure there. So
yeah.
when things came out when he actually left the club, he went to Queens Park Rangers. But yeah, I mean, I think he's got his own uh, football coaching thing going on now. I think at least he had it
Oh,
at
good,
Durham.
good.
So,
And
so but anyway,
Mickey Gray, obviously. I know he was playing as left winger then, but he was chirpy. He was sort of the life and soul of everything. But he had a bit about him as well, so he could back that up with his play.
well, oh, there you are, mate. Sorry, there was just some connection problems there. I'm going to have
Okay,
to pay me electricity bill. I think that's what the issues are.
you've got to do.
So no, so yeah, so you said Mickey Gray as well.
Yeah, I just thought Mickey. I mean, he's a lively character around the changing room,
Hmm.
chirpy, but he could back it up with his ability on the pitch, I think. And he went on to have a really, really good career playing at Celtic and Blackburn and various clubs. So it didn't surprise me. Probably thought Craig Russell, with his goal scoring abilities,
Yeah.
may have gone further, but it seemed that probably the old second division was his level. I think if he's honest, he would admit that. But no, and of course Barley, because
Yeah.
Barley, when a skipper, was one of the best skippers I played under. But moreover, you knew what you were getting every game, week in, week out, and he demanded it from other players. He was great for the club because the youngsters really seen somebody that could show them how footballers should
Hmm.
should should act.
Hmm.
They should conduct themselves, but also what it takes in terms of work hard to make it. So I admire Barley tremendously.
I think he still does a lot of work, with the young lads and that at the club now to this day.
Yeah,
I know that when
so
I've
so
visited, yeah, when I visited back there, and we've done like the academy tours and stuff. He's every youngin that comes past, he's always got, he's always taking the piss out of them for whatever reason. Like, I mean, it's just full on banter. So it doesn't
yeah,
matter who they are. I mean, and obviously he knows who they are, but he seems to have a
mm,
genuine interest in
yeah. Of course he
their
does. Yeah,
longevity in their career. And
he
I
loves it.
know even
He loves it.
yeah, even after if they are let go by Sunderland, I mean, he even
Yeah.
helps them navigate through that too, which is
That doesn't
absolutely wonderful.
surprise me.
So
It doesn't
no,
surprise me that because
he,
he's
he,
just a top bloke.
yeah, that's good to hear. So again, I mean, thinking about some other stuff, I pulled some old names out the hat here for you as well. So you've lined up alongside of Dave Bamber, Matt
Yeah,
Taylor, Imre Varadi, Lineker,
yeah.
Gascoigne, Naeem, Waddle, Mabbott, Ruddock, John Barnes, the Mag Slayer, Don Hutchison, McManaman, Fowler, Rush, Jeff Thomas, Gordon Cowans,
Yeah,
and Marco Gabbiadini when you're at Stoke there for a short period of
that's
time.
right. Yeah,
Stuart Williamson and Grant Holt.
yeah.
Who is the best player that you played alongside and why?
Paul Gascoigne.
Kaza? Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, it goes without saying.
in '91, he was, in my opinion, the best player on the planet. I
Mhm.
know that he's had his problems, and I know you guys won't like it because he's is the arch rivals. But at Spurs in the '91 season when we won the cup,
Hmm.
Paul was phenomenal in the league
Hmm.
and on the cup run. So, by far, he edges it on certainly the best players I've played with. In terms of strikers, because I usually get asked about who's
Hmm.
better, Rush or Lineker,
Hmm.
and I always say hands down Ian Rush,
Yeah.
because both of them could give you goals, but Rushy, when the defence had the ball, they were frightened to death because he'd pounce on them. He'd work for the team. He was your first line of defence. He didn't just stand up there doing his nails when the team was up against it. He'd work his socks off, and he'd frighten defences, certainly centre halves, to death, because he knew when to pounce. So he'd
Yeah.
give you the goals, and he'd also be your first line of defence. And whilst Gary was one of the best goal scorers England has had, the defensive side wasn't his bag, and that was why
Yeah.
Rushy, for me, edged it.
Yeah. Well, he was probably too busy eating crisps, was Lineker. That's what the problem was. Uh,
Who writes your material?
I had no idea. um, I have got a good question. Another good question from Eamon here. Were you involved in trying to get Gaza to come to Sunderland?
No, no, not at all. No,
No.
no. What? What?
No.
What?
He's probably
I
thinking,
don't.
hell no.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'd live with it. I'd live with him for long enough. So
That's fair enough.
it was good to have a break. But no, it was. I don't think it was ever mentioned, was it? I might not be aware.
He was. I think there was talk of him coming during Reedy's tenure. I'm not sure if it was shortly after you were with the club or not,
All right.
but there was a
Okay.
rumor that he was going to come to Sunderland because he was asked about it several times. And again, we weren't sure as fans how that would work out because we had the likes of Lee Clark and stuff who did really well for Sunderland, but obviously things didn't work out for him in the end,
Mm,
just based on one act of stupidity. Um, but yeah, as a football fan, obviously Gaza was absolutely sublime, and I mean, for me,
mm,
my first proper World Cup to sit down and watch. I mean, I caught some of the
mm.
'86 games, but obviously 1990 World Cup was just unbelievable.
Yeah,
So,
it was. It was.
and that was my time coming into my own as well, and yeah, that school and all that kind of stuff. So it was that I have really valued his input to the England team, and obviously he's just a phenomenal player. We'll never forget that. It's a
Mm.
shame how it's ended up for him. We don't like to see how he
Yeah.
is now, and but I think going back to the FA Cup, that was the game that he busted his knee, wasn't it? That game.
Yeah, yeah. He got carried off in the game.
Yeah.
And done so well for us, almost single-handedly getting us to the final.
Mm-hmm.
Scored the great goal in the semi-final against Arsenal, which gets played over and over again. And then one act of madness on the pitch saw him
Yeah.
get carried off against Forest, and he wanted to leave. I think Spurs with giving he'd already agreed to go to Lazio.
That's
The
it.
deal was done. So I think he wanted to, moreover, leave Tottenham with a trophy and a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on the day that probably ruled his
Mm-hmm.
heart rather than his head. And he went into a couple of rash challenges where I think if the referee had probably booked him initially, he might
Mm-hmm.
not have gone into that challenge on Gary Charles and
Yeah.
played the full game. But the history is that he did do that, and unfortunately suffered a cruciate
Yeah.
injury that nearly ended his career and nearly stopped him going to Lazio.
Well, there was the likes of Gaza and Platt actually that would get me to watch the Italian Serie A on a Sunday. So
Yeah,
because obviously it was a more interest, especially after the World Cup. So
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
so obviously over your entire career, right? Over your entire career, who has been
Mm.
your favourite midfield and strike partnership? So both independently. Who's your favourite midfielder to play alongside? And who's your favourite
Uh,
forward to play alongside?
well, like I said, Gaza, without doubt, was a
Yep.
midfielder. Striker, again, I'm going to say it's a toss-up between Rushy and Fowler, because
Okay.
Robbie was a phenomenal goal scorer with both feet. He had everything. So, but you know, Ian Rush is a legend at Liverpool, and the goals he scored, and like I said, for me, probably just edges it above Robbie.
I've got another quick question for you about the FA Cup final as
Go
well.
on.
Talk us through your goal, because one of the lads missed it. So talk us through your goal.
Well, I think Paul Allen Naeem had sort of passed it to Paul Allen, and I sort of broke down the right, looking for Paul to slide me in just inside the fullback, which he did, which was inch perfect, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't need to break stride, and I just concentrated on hitting the target, as that's what you were told as a young striker, sort of growing up. Just hit the target, make the keeper. If he aimed for the far
Mm-hmm.
post, he might palm it out. I just hit it so sweet. It went in the bottom corner on the. I sort of was on the right, and it went in the bottom corner of the net on the left, and my momentum took me over the hoardings because the Spurs fans were. It was the Spurs end, so it couldn't have been any better. Yeah, it was. It was a great ball from Paul Allen, and I think once we'd got the equaliser, we were the stronger team. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
bearing in mind Gary had missed a penalty, Gary Lineker. He'd also scored a goal that was never offside when you look back at it. So
Mm-hmm.
people started, you get that thing as your name on the cup rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought to myself, been through a lot in my life. I'm going to give it my best shot to make sure that we can at least get back level and see where it goes. And fortunately, I managed the equaliser.
Well, I will tell you, and I didn't mention this to you before as well. Obviously, the FA Cup final was it used to be a massive family occasion. You basically go and watch the 3 hours beforehand with
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
coaches driving to Wembley, that kind of thing. So in our house, what we used to do was we'd basically put the 22 starting players on a bit of paper, put them in a hat, and then draw them out. And we'd all put like
Mm.
£1 in. I have no idea how much I won, but ironically, I pulled Paul Stewart to score the first goal. So how about that? And here I am talking to you some almost 30 years on. So how about that? It's
Tell me
excellent. So
about it. Tell me about
so
it.
having made almost 600 career appearances, obviously you've faced like a ton of different players. Can you tell us who the best opposing player you've faced is and why?
Probably Cantona at Man United
Yeah,
when yeah, he was. You know,
that would
I
have been
don't
for
think
Sunderland then, right?
that was for Sunderland
Yeah.
and for Spurs, but he was just that game. You see the Sunderland game where we got hammered. He run the game, and to be fair, Reedy
Mm-hmm.
said to Borley before the game, if you mark Cantona and you do a good job, we might sneak a draw. We might come away with a point. I think, and this is no disrespect to Barley, but I think Cantona run him ragged, and purely and simply because Barley wanted to kick him, but he couldn't get near him and then Barley would drop off and he'd keep the ball, and it culminated in that goal where he sticks his chest out. But I
Oh.
think he was just head and shoulders above anyone around at that time.
Mm-hmm. How about, so obviously played a ton of different football grounds across across Europe, and
Mm.
what's the best ground you visited, and what's the worst ground that you visited?
Well, I loved the old Wembley with the Twin
Mm-hmm.
Towers. As you just alluded to a minute ago, I was the same on Cup Final day. Watched it when it was on TV because the cameras were there from
Mm-hmm.
from breakfast right through to going down Wembley Way, and you see the fans lining the streets and the Twin Towers. So when it was the old Wembley, that was certainly my favourite place to play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Worst place, I didn't really cherish going to Chelsea. I just felt the fans were a little bit intimidating, and it just wasn't. I don't think I. Sometimes you don't get any change out of certain places. You know what I mean? And I never felt that was one of the grounds where I sort of performed that well. So Chelsea was one that I didn't relish going to. I've lost you, Derek. You didn't pay the bill after all.
Oh, Paul, sorry about that, mate. Sorry about that.
All right, you haven't paid that bill, have you?
I haven't. I need to have a chat with our lass or something. I think she know he takes care of that. All right, I apologise. We're back now live. I did try and do some more sorts of stuff there, so I'm going to put you back to Legend Stewie on here. I'll tell you where we're at now. So basically, we talk about the highlights in your career here. So basically, of your promotion with Blackpool, won the FA Cup, England caps, promotion with Sunderland, the sending off that never was, if you remember that, against Arsenal.
Against Arsenal. He never
Tom
liked me, that referee.
I'll tell you what, man, that was a travesty. That I think one of the was I at the game? I think we had 2 players sent off, and we were actually. I thought we were playing really well.
Was it Smithy and myself? Wasn't it the fullback?
Are you there?
I'm
It's
here,
excellent because you were sat like this for a while. I said you looked like Benny Hill for a while there. Sorry, mate. So yeah. You've obviously had a lot of memorable moments as well. Goal scoring accolades. What was your most memorable moment in your career, you think?
Most memorable, I suppose, lifting the FA Cup, scoring and being man of the match. Got to be up there with alongside my debut against West Germany for England. But there are a lot of great fond memories, a lot of ups and downs in football, as everybody knows. So it is a bit of a roller coaster journey, and mine certainly can be said that it was certainly that. But I've got my England caps. I've got 2 championship medals and an FA Cup winners medal. I think I had a fairly decent career, and I just, like I said to you earlier, I just wish that I'd not strayed off the rails and done better at Liverpool Football Club, and not because I support them or anything. At the time it was one of the greatest clubs. They paid a lot of money for me, and it all looked on paper like everything was going to be so good for me, but I unfortunately veered onto the dark side, shall we say.
What was your most memorable moment as a Sunderland player then?
I think I scored at Middlesbrough. We played away. I think Nigel Pearson was playing for Middlesbrough at the time. Did we beat them 1-0? I scored the goal. It was somewhat of a derby, but not. I think Middlesbrough class it more as a derby than Sunderland do. But that and obviously going up with them. And like I said to you, I think that derby game, because I sort of reaffirmed in my own mind that I could do it at the top level again. So them 2, I think, for me.
Excellent. So would you have said that was probably your favourite of your 5 goals you scored for Sunderland? The one against Borough?
I think so. Yeah. I scored against Liverpool, which is always nice. I think it was at home to score against a club that have got rid of you. You know what I mean? So although we lost the game, unfortunately, I scored a header again from a corner. So that was satisfying in some way, but it's always demoralising when you get beat. I'd have loved that to have been the winner.
Absolutely. So you've worked with the likes of Alan Brown, Sam Ellis, Mel Makin, Terry Venables, Peter Shreves, Graham Taylor, Graham Souness, Alan Smith, Roy Evans, Jimmy Mullen, Peter Reid. And that put on here, there was like a 3-way, that sounds terrible, 3-way with Chick Bates, Chris Kamara, and Alan Durbin.
Yep.
And Pete Hampton. And Graham Pritchard from Arizona also wants to know who was the best manager you played under and what set him aside from others.
I think I'd have to say that I have 3 managers that I class that had a massive influence on my career. Sam Ellis, who I'm still close friends with, because he brought me up as a youngster, gave me the knowledge, the games, the experience to go on and sort of achieve bigger things. When I went to Tottenham, I think Terry Venables was head and shoulders above any of the managers in terms of his knowledge, and he was far more advanced, because he'd been to Barcelona, and his training was so enjoyable. His coaching was enjoyable. And then Reedy for his inspiration, really, his downright, determination. And if you give it 100% for Reedy, he would always back you. So I think in some ways to pick one of them would be unfair, because equally for me, the three of them had massive influences on my career.
Excellent. So you obviously you've got a vast experience as a player. Did you ever fancy getting into management in football?
Well, to be honest with you, Chris Kamara asked me would I join the coaching staff at Stoke when I was there. I'd never really aspired to stay in the game and be a coach, if I'm honest. Purely and simply because I'd done a lot of travelling around. I wanted to settle down back home in Blackpool with my children and my wife, and that it's such a temperamental game where you can be in a job and then 6 weeks later you're out of a job and you're moving on to another town. So I'd done a lot of that. So I just said to Chris, well, we'll talk about it at the end of the season. But from then, we went on such a poor run of form, he got sacked, and it never really came up again. Really, it never really came. Workington asked me to be player manager, but again, it wasn't something that I'd aspired to be. I mean, I love the game. Don't get me wrong, but would I have been cut out to be a coach? I'm not so sure.
Well, you mentioned Workington there. Obviously, you were involved with the club. I know you went to Stoke after you left Sunderland, and then went on to Workington. But obviously, they played non-league football. But you were involved in a historic moment with them when they were promoted to the Northern Premier League First Division. How did it compare? From a like training regime and the likes to playing non-league, working out with non-league, and then obviously playing professional football like you had all your career.
I trained on my own because I was living in Blackpool, because it's about 2 hours up to Workington. What it did do, it made me realise how lucky I was when I played in the professional level, because sometimes you take it for granted. You play a game and you're asked to come in training the next day, and I like others would moan saying, "What the hell's going on?" You take for granted the privileged position that you're in sometimes. When I went to Workington, you've got these lads that are working shifts, working nights. They come and they give their all just for the love of the game, and I sort of wished that I'd played for Workington first, because it would have made me really, really appreciate the privileged position I was in when I played at Sunderland, Tottenham, Manchester City, because I don't think that I did all of the time.
Wikipedia page will say about like famous historic players who played for them. So you made the list anyway, Stuart, if nothing else, which is great.
What was that? The Workington list?
Yeah, the Workington one. Yeah, you're on there as one of their historic famous players.
Like I say, do you know what? I think I found the reason. I found the reason why I loved football in the beginning. Looking at them players and how honest, how they would work, in normal jobs, and work all day, and then turn up and play for Workington and give it their all. And I really admired the lads for doing that, and it taught me a lesson. Are you back?
Yep, I'm back. Yeah, as soon as I start asking like dodgy questions, like it's
It's
basically
me.
cuts me off.
It's me
It's
from this end, so I don't have to answer them.
it's probably Stuart Donald. He's probably working there with one of those things clicking. So basically, what's is anybody in the current Sunderland team that you enjoy watching play?
You know, I'd have to be honest with you now and say there's nothing currently about Sunderland that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them back up. You know, when you look at Leeds making it back into the Premiership, you know, you look at teams like Sunderland, and it's an absolute travesty where they are. But also, you know, the fans that are so loyal deserve them they deserve more from the club. And you know, I'm not so sure whether it's being run correctly. And I know that there's demonstrations and people are not happy with what's going on. And you know, I'm disappointed that they're not really where they should be in terms of position and as a club. And you would like to think somebody, and I know it's all about money, somebody with a lot of money, you know, they come to Sunderland like they've done at Manchester City, and what an opportunity they would have to create history, bring them back up into the Premiership, and the fans, as you know, they never. You know, it doesn't matter if they played in the non-league like Workington; they'd still turn up in the droves. That's what you get from Sunderland fans, don't you? So, yeah, at the moment, I'm disappointed in everything that's happening at the club.
Well, there's again, Meerman from George's put on there. There's rumours in the media that suggest that Mickey Gray is trying to pull together a consortium to buy the club. He's laughing. You've already asked it, and you've probably just by that you've answered the question. The question is, it's a two-part question. Do you think he's the right man to do this, and could he have the same impact on the club as Quinny did? This is bad because I'm sure you're still mates with Mickey, so it's like
I am, yeah, and you know what? I don't think Mickey can't organise his own packed lunch, so how he could organise a football club unless he gets, the only thing I would say, he probably knows enough people to get a consortium together, and if he brought somebody in experienced at running football clubs, then that might be an option. But I don't think Mickey, off his own back, could walk into Sunderland and know how to run a football club, because it's. I'm sure it's not that easy. Maybe he'll ring me up.
He might do. If he rings you, ring me as well. Let me know.
But yeah, I don't see that happening personally.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's it. Again, honest opinion. I appreciate that. So, as a player, then, Stewie, what was the best advice that you think you were given over your career?
No such word as can't.
That's fair. I say that to the kids.
Well, that's what my mum used to say to me.
That's fair enough. Like,
that remains
a standard.
Yeah.
So, what's your proudest moment?
Well, considering the wife's not here, so if she was here, I'd have to say getting married, but she's not. So, proudest moment that walking out and playing at Wembley for England, most definitely.
Definitely not me this time.
It's definitely not me. I haven't moved.
Are you sure? You are in Blackpool. I mean, to
we
be
haven't
fair,
even got colour TV. We haven't got colour TV here
yet. You haven't got a donkey in the backyard, have you?
You know what a dog?
You've got one of those.
What a donkey has for lunch, don't you?
Go on.
45 minutes, like everyone else.
Way. Brilliant.
God.
Good Lord. The illuminations have drawn all the power away from your house or something.
Honestly, no, I've got full power and full signal. It's you in
I've got short on mine too.
It might
you're
in Wisconsin, though, aren't you?
Oh, stop, man!
Is it not rednecks?
No, no. It's full of beer and cheese. That's all it is. So that's a habit I've got to break too. So anyway, so outside of football, and what do you think, or what do you consider to be your biggest accomplishment outside of football?
Well, I learnt I learnt another language.
Spanish.
Yeah.
I knew that.
I
Congratulations on
know,
that.
and also the work that I'm doing now. I because I was a victim. It
Hmm.
didn't necessarily mean that I would be in a position to be able to go and talk about safeguarding. So what I wanted to do and to make sure that I educated myself around safeguarding. So I did the courses in safeguarding right to the highest level that you can achieve, because
Hmm.
I wanted not just to have the lived experience but also have the knowledge of what safeguarding really is. So doing that and then doing the work that I do now is
Hmm.
probably, and the book, to be honest, the book, I never was going to write an autobiography, and I will
Hmm.
say that my footballing achievements, I didn't think warranted them. When you talk about the Rushes, the Linekers, you can understand that they write autobiographies, but it all changed when I came forward in 2016, because I genuinely felt that I had a story to tell.
Because obviously he's given up his time.
Killing
But
us,
this
aren't
is
we?
just this is just destroying me again.
Has it,
It's never normally this bad. Never normally.
has it has it happened with any other guests, or you
Oh,
just
it happens.
you're
No.
winding me up, aren't you?
Well, it's funny you should say that, Stewie. No, I don't know what's going on with it, mate. Honestly, I mean, I do get it from time to time, but it's not this bad normally. So I don't know. I normally go through and then tell everybody in the house to turn off the tablets and everything. It's like turn that off, switch the TV off. We've got all that, the Netflix thing going through it and everything. So and again, and I don't want to rush you through any of the questions. So that's the other thing.
Yeah,
But I will
that's
ask you
fine.
this: other than Sunderland, obviously,
Mm.
which club would you really wanted to play for? Are you going to say? You're going to say?
Man United.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not okay. I'm not
Sorry.
going. I'm not going to ask you why. So,
What, I bet you wish you
because
froze on that answer, don't you?
just left it there. Left it right. I could have. Right. So, playing all different clubs, you've heard. Obviously, you've had people singing your own name. You've heard people singing other players' names as well. Is there a favorite chant or song that you've heard from the stands that it stuck with you? You've always remembered, other than the
Well, do you know what
Lee
it's
Howie.
I suppose spine tingling is when you walk out at Anfield and
Hmm.
you've got the whole stadium doing "You'll Never Walk Alone." I mean,
Hmm.
that is something that no other ground, I don't think, possesses in
Hmm.
terms of entering to the stadium as players. I mean, I've always said that you can never replace that, what I call the 5-3 feeling. And
Hmm.
I say that because when I played, it was always 3 o'clock kickoffs. But
Hmm.
when you're stood in a tunnel at 5-3, waiting to go out on the pitch, and you've got whatever stadium you're playing at is
Hmm.
full of fans, and the anticipation, it really does make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, because you know that
Hmm.
you're going out then to do something that you love to do. So, but I would have to say that you never walk alone
Hmm.
when the Liverpool fans, and they do it for every home game.
Yeah.
Um, that is one special moment.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah. How would you describe Sunderland fans in 3 words?
Passionate,
Hmm.
um, honest, and daft as brushes. How they turn up to games in February without a shirt on, I'll never know.
It's unfortunately my dad comes over from time to time and he's called me soft now, so I'll go outside and I've got the jacket and everything on. I mean, we get bitter weather here in the winter, but
Yeah.
even I put a long sleeve shirt on to go somewhere, and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" So yeah, so I get that from my dad for sure. So dressing room. So basically, I heard about you and Tony Coton. We've been
Yeah.
like changing room clowns and stuff. So,
Yeah.
in your opinion, what's your funniest incident that you're either involved in or witnessed at Sunderland?
Well, to be honest with you, yeah, I was part of one of the pranksters there.
Hmm.
Barley was so focused. So he was into everything had to be right with him, and he was the trainer that he would train and train and train. And as a captain, I said to you, he was brilliant. But we used to have, when we travelled away to away games, we had a tracksuit, and we, believe it or not, we only had two t-shirts, a red and a white t-shirt. And Reedy, at the end of training, would tell us what colour shirt we had to travel in, and then what colour shirt we had to go to the game in. It was only a red or a white one. So I got the lads together and said, "Look, we'll get Barley going." When when Reedy tells us what colour, I'll say, "Okay, lads, let's. I'll see you at the station or on the bus." It was we had some passcode that meant that whatever colour Reedy said, we'd change it, and Barley would turn up in the one that. So we'd all be stood there in the red t-shirts, and Barley would have a white one on, and we'd be going to him because he was, he would always want to put the right one on, and he couldn't believe that he got it wrong, and he had no idea that we were winding him up, and we were going, "Barley, how can you get it wrong? The gaffer said wear your red one," and he's then starting to convince himself that he's got it wrong. So we kept that going for a good few weeks, but it was just, and when he found out, he went mad. Honestly,
I can imagine.
He went absolute balmy.
I bet he was incensed. That'd be brilliant. That I might. Sorry, next time I think so. That's class. So how would you sum up your time at Sunderland?
I loved it going up with them. We struggled in the Premiership, and I wasn't firing on all cylinders. But to be fair, we'd got players in that were coming to the end of their careers. We did, the quality, I would say, wasn't quite there for the Premiership that year. We nearly stayed up, and it'd have been great, but I was disappointed to leave, when it did by relegation. But I needed to get back home. I was living in Durham out of a hotel. So I asked Reedy, I said, if a club from near my home comes in, would you mind me going? He did want me to stay, to be fair. But I was just disappointed to leave on the sort of note of them going down out of the Premiership when, everybody had worked so hard to get in there. So that really was, but I loved it. I loved the people. I loved the area. It was just tough in the Premiership when you weren't. You're getting beat most weeks. It's tough to take.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Then, is there anything else you want to share with us, Paul?
No, I don't think so. Apart from you paying that electric bill, next time I'll
work harder on that next time. I'll be siphoning from my neighbour's house. That's what I'll be doing. I'll tell you what.
I'd just like to say, listen, thanks for inviting me on. Thanks for everyone that is listening. Sorry about what Derek. It's Derek's fault that we kept freezing and had to go in and out. But thanks for listening, and really appreciate you inviting me on.
Hey, Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure. I was going to mention one more thing, just because this lad who I know can be a bit of a dick, so the people that are watching this now know exactly who he is. He's called Paul Williams. Paulie, we call him. Paulie says, ask him about that sitter he missed against Wimbledon, is what he said, because he couldn't watch.
Header.
I watched it through. I wasn't going to include it, but I watched it through. And so Paulie said he can't watch live today. He's going to watch it back when he gets back with the bed. So, yeah, he says, well, ask him. So,
Get lost, Paulie. Listen, you've got a question, haven't you? Before we go,
what's that?
What's that?
Oh, of course I do. Thank you very much for reminding me. It is on my script here as well. Right. So thank you. So thanks. You can come on every week, Stewie. It's amazing. This. Thanks very much. So I did mention at the start that we had a quiz question as well to win a signed book from Paul. So the question is, who was the team that Paul Stewart scored his last or his final goal for Sunderland? It's quite a historic one. I'll leave it at that. Okay. And send your answers to sonsoflibertysafc@gmail.com. That's sonsoflibertysafc@gmail.com. Stewie, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I want to thank you again for your time. And thank you for your service to the club. And also I want to thank you for the work you've done and what you continue to do for the Save Association as well. So I really appreciate it. Um, thank,
You know where I am, Derek, don't you? You've got everything.
I do, mate.
So if I can
Honestly,
help,
it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Definitely.
thanks very much.
I want to thank the viewers for tuning in at home as well, and remind them that next week we've got former Sunderland stopper Chris Turner in the studios as well. So again, thanks very much. Stay safe, stay well, and keep the faith. Cheers, Stewie.
Thanks.
Take care, mate.
See you, pal.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's not freezing now.
No, it's not now.
See you later.
Oh,